Hello everybody, Megazord here, back at it again to give you another very exciting video. And for today, we're going to be talking about something that almost every single gamer goes through. Yes, while we're going through and playing a game, you're going to have some high moments, you're going to have some low moments, but at the very end of the game, we always have those moments that are either super exciting, super thrilling, sometimes very frustrating, and everything else in between. Yes, I am talking about final bosses. In today's video, I want to go through and talk about 10 of my most favorite or slash iconic final bosses that I have played from all these different Nintendo games. It's gonna be a wide different spread of stuff, everything from almost going as old as the NES, all the way up to the Nintendo Switch. So this is just a beware for all things though. There's only one final boss on here that's a Switch game, but everything else you probably had seen it or heard about it at this point though. I just want to kind of give my thoughts out there in terms of some of my most favorite final bosses, because some of these, oh my gosh, they still are in the back of my memory to this day though. But if you hadn't already done so, make sure to go and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. Kicking things right off in the Wii era, yes, we're talking about Taboo, the final boss of Super Smash Bros. Brawl. This boss right here, go back and actually looking at this boss, at the time, I was like, who the heck is this? I was like, I guess he's a unique kind of enemy for Smash Bros., which technically, yes, that was the case. However, unlike most of these other characters from the Smash Bros. Series, because we always know that was just essentially the Avengers of Nintendo franchises. You put together all these different franchises from Nintendo's history and put them all into one game, beautifully crafted by none other than Sakurai himself though. But with Taboo, that was somebody that he'd really never seen before up until this moment. By the time we got to him at the very end of the game, it was like, what the heck? This dude was actually controlling Master Hand, and if you did a little bit of lore digging and all that stuff, you actually figured out that he was one pulling the strings, no pun intended. But that final boss fight though, oh shoot, man, I still remember there was one little move that he did where it kind of did he got in the center of the screen and then just did flashes of red or whatnot though. And the only way how you can do it, I guess, is if you perfect shield dodge, which during the Wii time, during Brawl, that game is cool though, because that story mode was really lit. But whole shoot, the controls during that, I think the best thing you could do is be Pokemon trainer and switch between the Pokemon to avoid those blasts. Honestly, when you look at Taboo and you compare it to Master Hand or even now Crazy Hand, no, Master Hand and Crazy Hand can't even hold a candle to this boss right here. He was a menace, he was true, and he laid down the hurt on a lot of different phases of his fight though. It's been a while since I recently went and tried to actually challenge him though, but that is a challenge, through and through, even up until this day. King K. Rool, okay, we all know this big bad boy. For a lot of us, we kind of got his introduction for Donkey Kong Country 1. However, for me personally, I actually started with Donkey Kong Country 2. And this game was phenomenal. One of my most favorite platforming games of all time, especially with this whole entire trilogy now that I've gone through and played it. And this dude was a menace. He managed to get Donkey Kong from the very beginning of this game, tie him up, and we had to go, Diddy as well as Dixie managed to have to go all the way up there and have to, save Donkey Kong. It's kind of rare when you got one of your main iconic MVPs, DK Donkey Kong. He's really good. Now, in terms of that final boss fight for King K. Rool though, I remember this thing very vividly well because I was playing on my old GBA SP. I think I was at my grandma's house at the time now. I can't say how many, I'll say hours, so it's probably a grand total of maybe 5 hours or so, going on and off and challenging that boss over and over and over again. Because he did some simple shots with the gun and stuff, you can jump over that, but then when he started shooting those crazy things where it starts hovering and looping around and stuff like that, trying to jump over that stuff, it got challenging. The music was great, phenomenal, and whole shoot, every single moment at that boss, it was just great. It's one of my most earliest and most vivid points in history in terms of me fighting the boss right there. Very challenging, but all the same, very rewarding once you finally free Donkey Kong. Oh, Mike Tyson, I got some words to say to you, boy, because you completely wrecked my childhood. I will let you know that right now. I can't say how many I put hours and hours and hours. not even just to, fight the boss, but let alone actually get up to that final boss, because you have to go through and beat all of these people in a row. You have to remember your cheat code so you can get back roughly where you're at in terms of your series. So I was playing all of this on the original NES at the time though. Finally managed to get to Mike Tyson, but I could barely ever manage to beat him though. And then lo and behold, when I finally managed to get to him, I managed to save the codes. I was able to really grind against this person. I started this mess when I was probably 7 or 8, and I didn't finish it until I didn't manage to actually finally beat this boss until I think it was like sophomore or junior year of high school. I actually managed to sit down and say, let me go ahead and beat this final boss though. Because Mike Tyson and Mr. Dream, and some of y'all that hadn't played the original NES cartridge though, but I always refer to him as Mike Tyson. That's the way I remember it though. But that dude, that first 90 seconds of that fight, he punches you once and you're down out the count and you technically lose one of your quote-unquote lives. It's just like a standard knockout, but obviously you get knocked out 3 times in a round, you're just completely out though. It was a process learning all of his techniques in terms of how he was going to do one type of punch, if he was going to stand and just quickly do a quick jab. I had to learn that mess down to a T. My reaction time while holding that NES controller, I was dicking, I was, slipping and sliding, moving left, moving a little bit of right, doing the double duck down. I was all over the place. Mr. barely managed to survive that first 90 seconds, let alone get in a single punch. It was one of those bosses I had to literally commit to memory every single action that he could possibly do and have a reaction or a response to everything he managed to throw out there though. Definitely by far out of this whole entire list I have right here, easily one of the top 5 most hardest bosses I have ever played in my life, and it takes a lot of time, commitment, and dedication to actually learn the craft, to actually play, that NES form of Punch-Out. Featuring Mike Tyson, not Mr. Dream, Mike Tyson. That's the better boss right there. Cynthia. Oh shoot. You talk about giving me some chills. Woo, Cynthia was a champion in and of itself, because she was technically the first female champion, but she was not pulling any punches back then. Remember playing through Pokemon Diamond back in the day, and I remember I was at my grandma's house, like all things, like when I play a final boss, as you heard from some of these things though. But I was going through there. I think I almost managed to beat it in roughly in the span of a week though, but Cynthia, I think, tied me up for 3 to 4 days. We had a very killer team. I mean, obviously she had like that Togekiss and the Rose Raid and that Milotic and a few other Pokemon here and there though, but that one ace Pokemon that everybody and their mama knows, the star ace of her team was definitely that Garchomp. Probably, and I kind of already had a love of dragons at that point though, but I think my love of dragons actually solidified really hard, including, influencing my mascot that I even use on this channel today, was because of Cynthia's Garchomp. That thing came in like a wrecking ball. The best thing you can manage to do is have an ice type, maybe that, quad weakness to it though, but if you weren't coming in there with that, if you weren't moving quick enough, she would wreck you hard. I think she even might have had a fire type move this to protect herself from the ice types. Sometimes I remember getting my team down to maybe with 4 or 5 Pokemon left, and Cynthia had that one Garchomp, and she came in there wrecking me. It would probably be even a whole different story if Mega Evolution was a thing back then, considering how like Garchomp has like a Mega Garchomp form. Honestly, Cynthia is like one of the coolest, one of the bad Mamma Jamma champions. She literally was there every single step of the way in terms of you going through your adventures through the Sinnoh region, helping you out, especially during the events of dealing with Dialga, Palkia, or Giratina if you happen to be playing Platinum. And she was there every step of the way, so you wouldn't think she would have been the champion until you actually saw her, and it was like night out, lights out for every single person that was playing that game though. And it's crazy because you can say Cynthia, and guess what? When you play that piano thing and it goes like that literally gives me goosebumps, and probably a whole bunch of people in that Pokemon community. All like, oh shoot, she was real. She was the real deal. Definitely a lot of respect to Cynthia right there. Hades, man, like what on earth? Like this dude right here, gosh, he's probably one of the most entertaining, but yet super iconic final bosses that I have ever played from any Nintendo game series, because literally this dude right here, he was like a step up comedian. The one thing I really did like with Kid Icarus Uprising was all the different dialogues and stuff that was going on while you were playing. It was very heavily influenced or focused on that dialogue while you're going through and playing. It can immerse you into the world a lot, especially when you're going from these mission to mission structures. My goodness, like this is great. And the fact that Hades actually psyched you out towards the midpoint won't even say the midpoint. It might have been like the 30% marker of the game. When you thought you were done with Methuselah, and he literally came out like, no, credits. The game's not over just yet. It's like one of those first ever twists I have ever seen in a Nintendo game, let alone just game in general. And when he came out and did that little introduction, then this going like, Hades, hit Hades. I was like, oh shoot, this is gonna be great.
Hello again. Hit.
Hades.
Hit.
Hades.
Hit.
Hades.
Hit.
Hades. Excuse you. But anyway, now
I had a smile on nearly the whole entire time. Might have messed up a few good times, like he might have surprised me in a few moments. Not ultimately a very challenging boss, but definitely a very entertaining boss, especially considering Sakurai was the one that actually made this game. You flying around, ducking and weaving, shooting this, Hades running around, and oh shoot, there was a lot of great stuff that was happening on the screen, and just trying to keep up with all of this stuff. I was like, my gosh, though. But ultimately, a very thrilling and very exciting final boss, and definitely up there in terms of one of my favorites. Now, this dude right here, Demise, though, I was like, hold up. Skyward Sword for me was one of my very first Legend of Zelda games I've ever tried. Hadn't tried Ocarina, Majora's Mask, none of those games before that, not even Twilight Princess. Skyward Sword was the very first one. Say what you want about the motion controls. If you couldn't handle it on the Wii, you just weren't that good at the game. That's just a skill issue. Going through and playing that final boss against Demise, and then learning out that technically Skyward Sword was the very first game in the timeline. So the first iteration of technically Ganondorf, before we actually knew him as Ganondorf, and the one that actually put the curse in motion in terms of the bloodlines between Link, Zelda, and what would be Ganon/Ganondorf, and how, you know, throughout the histories, throughout their bloodlines, this curse will constantly be rolling with them. Man, that was amazing. The fact that Girahim, which was like our primary villain for most of the game, you thought he would have been the final boss, but turns out that was just Demise's sword the whole entire time, trying to bring Demise back. I was like, wait a minute now, hold up. I was going around holding up that Wii remote, and I was like, charge that sucker up. I was like, what is it? That game came out like around 2010 or so, or something like that though. So yeah, I was still a kid at the time though, but man, I was like, man, I'm about to slay this man right here. Like, you know, it was mono e mono time and whatnot though. Like I was going hard on Demise right there. I was going real hard on that dude, because I was like, man, I'm about to slay you tonight. It took several good times of timing out those backflips and those side steps and whatnot though, and just, you know, avoiding his electrifying shocks and everything like that. Like that was a battle for the ages right there. It really kind of felt like you were in it, especially with all the motion controls. I know now you can play Skyward Sword via HD and all that stuff and just do it with buttons, but I'm like, nah, it really felt like something else. The way how you were swinging that wheel remote around and syncing up your moves with Link on the screen just kind of felt like you were immersed in that final boss itself. It was just truly another level right there. I could not go without mentioning Mario 64's final boss. Yes, I'm talking about you, King of the Koopas. This Bowser in Mario 64 was obviously a very different Bowser than what we kind of see nowadays, with Bowser in one of the closest or most modern iterations, that being you know, Mario Odyssey, or even looking at 2D side things with Bowser and Mario Wonder. It was a very different Bowser back then. Even the way how he introduced himself and made that laugh, like you can just tell some things were going down. The time when I was going through and playing this game, I think I was, you know, obviously a kid, maybe around the age of like 8 and 9 or something like that. By the time I finally managed to get mine, at least a bare minimum 70 stars to be able to actually challenge on that dude. Because man, I was running up those endless stairs trying to get to him, but that wasn't going to work unless he got that 70, or I didn't know about that backwards long jump back then though. But ultimately going through and fighting that boss, I was like, what the heck? The music was like, you know, you knew something was going down when you heard like a bunch of instruments and stuff you never heard before, and you're like, granted, I know I was young though, but you know, that was nothing that you normally heard over there on the radio back then though. Hearing all those organs and stuff going off, Bowser over here running you down and stuff. When you swung that thing around and you happen to miss the shot, he comes back on the stage, creates shockwaves, drops part of the stage. I was running around for my dear life. I was like, oh shoot, what the heck is Bowser over here doing now? He would follow you constantly and kind of had that eye up on you though, and trying to get to the tail. Yes, granted, if I were to go back and play this now, or anybody else, you'll kind of know how to time those up to where you can quickly abuse the system and speed run it though. But back then you just didn't know that stuff though, man, because you know, Bowser was like a whole nother beast back then though. So honestly, my palm was sweating. I was trying to, you know, ring that controller stick around so hard and so fast, like just, you know, go 90 to nothing on that stick just to try to make sure you line up that shot just perfectly. Well, line up Bowser to hit that bomb though. But it wasn't the fact that it was just a one and done like one of those first 2 phases. No, you had to throw this dude up on there 3 different times on 3 different bombs. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, will this fight ever end? You know, time ran very differently when you were young though. But nonetheless, when I finally got that and managed to save, you know, Princess Peach at the end, ooh, that felt so sweet at the very end though. Like, oh my gosh. But yeah, I definitely have to mention that boss right there. Got 3 more left. I want to give you just a quick little heads up on this. The next 3 are going to be focused on Nintendo Switch games. So maybe you had these in the pipeline and you hadn't managed to do this. This is kind of a little bit of spoiler warning, but we thought it kind of went without saying before even doing this video though. But yeah, one's going to be a game based on 2017, the other one around 2020-ish, and the other one kind of somewhere in between though. So I don't want to kind of give it away though, but you know, if you hadn't already kind of, you know, played these final bosses, you know, this is a little warning right here. So in 2017, we managed to get a game called Xenoblade Chronicles 2. This game right here, I was very skeptical about it. I knew it was one of Nintendo's bigger JRPGs, but I really did not know the series that well. I managed to win this game in a giveaway or something like that, so I was like, I might as well go ahead and try it though. But this story right here in this game, out of all the 3 Xenoblade games, and I've been hooked on the series ever since this game though, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was still by far the most important game for me personally in terms of how deeply I connected with the series. That final boss right there though, it's not the most flashiest, it's not the most craziest, and it probably doesn't kind of hold a candle to most of the other things, but it's more so the adventure that kind of led up to the moment of that final boss that made it that much more significant when you were battling against Malos, who was your main antagonist for the whole entire story. While you're going through the story, you as Rex, as well as you have like Mithra and Pyra assisting you, now fused into Numa, and oh shoot, like everything else that was kind of going along, even, you know, Cloud saying some words in the background. You actually realize that if you happen to play Xenoblade Chronicles 1, I have to go back and then go back and figure out. I realized that later though, but that boss right there, it was hard, it was challenging. The game didn't do a lot, you know, a really good job in terms of like explaining how to actually play the game in terms of like tutorials and stuff like that. I had to actually learn how to do burst attacks during the chain attacks during that actual final boss. I never really had a need to actually do it up until that point. That kind of goes to say something in terms of like the way how they teach you to play that game. But once you understood that, boss wasn't too much more challenging beyond that though. But going back and forth, juggling your healers and stuff like that, trying to keep the party, you know, healed up, doing all that mad attack damage on them though, and then kind of juggling when like to chain attack or to revive a party member, because I don't know why the party member and reviving use the same scale. I'm glad it's different in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 though, but overall, this game right here is freaking phenomenal, especially with the cutscenes and stuff that kind of showcase before, during, and a little bit after this final boss though, but definitely one to kind of remember at the end of the day. Oh shoot, Pokemon Legends Arceus was a really great game. I think it's probably one of the best games on the Nintendo Switch in terms of like everything from like your Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearls to your Sword and Shields, and even on Scarlet and Violet. I think Legends Arceus is still one of the best games out there though, and considering how Volo has literally been your buddy, been assisting you every step of the way, you wouldn't think that he would be the actual main antagonist even after you can finish the main part of the story of the game. But then once you kind of get into the post game, you figure out he had this huge obsession with Arceus. Not just have a very tough battle with him, because the way how it's set up with the agile versus strong style moves, you're just been trading blows. It's like you knock out one of his Pokemon, he'll knock out yours. You kind of go back and forth, and then you get down to the very last Pokemon and you knock him out, and then you're thinking, oh okay, I beat him. It's all said and done. No, not necessarily, because this one has a phase 2 right here, because then he summons Giratina out. I was thinking my whole party was gonna come back in here healed. No, I presume exactly where you left back off at, and I think I lost the first time he showed up. I was like, oh shoot, I can't say how many times I tried to fight this boss over and over and over again, until finally I got past phase 1 and I got past phase 2 of the fight, and I was like, okay, I'm doing good, thank goodness. The second you knock out Giratina, he pauses for a moment, and then he goes like, and all that crazy music starts going down, and he turns and morphs from his altered form to his origin form. I was like, wait a gosh dang minute. So this is technically a 3-phase boss. I was like, I never seen this in a Pokemon game ever. And he wiped my butt the first time. I have to do it, you know, a few more good times over and over, have to go through and do a little bit of level grind and stuff like that. But when I finally came back and finally beat him, oh shoot, it was a very satisfying moment. Last and certainly not least, I wouldn't say necessarily it's like the best one in terms of this list. It just happens to be one of the last ones I happen to talk about. My boy over here, Raven Beat. And oh shoot, I think more so versus just the crazy fights and interactions you might have had with this boss at the time though. I think it's more so about all these years that kind of led up to this final boss that kind of actually concluded a phase for Metroid. Mind you, this was a boss in the making and a revolution, or a conclusion, should I say. This final boss does not disappoint, especially once, Samus actually manages to delve deep within her powers and actually makes that final grand finale run to our ship, like how most sequences kind of go with most Metroid games once you get to the very tail end of the game though. But that fight against him, they make you pull out almost every single move, everything within your tool belt on this final boss. Everything from zipping real fast to the screw attack to jumping around and staying up in the air and stuff like that, the melee counters. It literally put everything to the test on this final boss. You have to study this man, and there are some moments where you have to actually do like a counter or something like that to progress to the next phase. Some of those action moments where you're actually ducking and weaving and moving around the dude and just maneuvering around him and doing all these quick time events. It was some of the sickest moments I have ever seen within a Metroid game, or should I say a 2D Metroidvania game, period. But that conclusion was very rewarding. I won't go too much more in terms of like the lore of this character though, but the connection that he has between Samus and this dude right here, oh my gosh, it was just such a thrilling race, and it kind of makes you think and question how in the world they're going to be able to top this game in the future, or where could the direction of the game series go for Metroid though, considering the events and how they transpire at the very end of Metroid Dread though. Obviously, with the title being Dread, you knew it's going to be a very dreading but yet thrilling and exciting experience, and that final boss did not disappoint. So yeah, so that's going to basically do it in terms of all of these final bosses I wanted to go through and just kind of share my experiences throughout my gaming history. Obviously, some of these bosses I have played and encountered as low as I probably like age of 7 all the way up to currently just now. But man, I would love to hear all your final boss experiences down in the comment section down below. What kind of game series is it? What was the name of the boss? Or it doesn't necessarily have to be final bosses. It could just be bosses in general. I'm kind of curious to see which ones have stood out to you in terms of most enjoyed or most frustrating, or anywhere else in between though, because there's some bosses I could not include up in here. I mean, I'll be here all day talking about every single thing. If it wasn't just final bosses, just bosses in general, like even Ridley, I wanted to put Ridley up in this list, but I was trying to keep it down to a list of 10 though, because damn, that dude right there, he is stellar. Oh shoot though. But that's gonna basically do it in terms of this video right here though. But if you really like it, make sure you go and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So remember y'all, until our video I make next, see y'all.